welcome to another huge update interview. And I'm currently with Igor Sandman, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
You're right. If you'd just like to introduce yourself and what you're currently working on.
Well, I'm a multitask artist. Right now, I'm mainly working in video games, indie games. But I've done a lot of things. I've been working as a filmmaker. I've been working in special effects for TV. A lot of stuff. Right now, I'm working as a freelance pixel artist, and also working on Guild of Darksteel, my own game. It's an adventure game in pixel art. I'm developing it myself. So that's about it.
Yeah. So, what made you, as a multimedia artist, what made you actually go into or want to explore the world of video games?
Well, as most of us, I grew up with video games, right? My first introduction with video games was the Amstrad CPC when I was a kid, and I had all the consoles. Every generation, I bought a new one, and you know how it can get to you when you're a kid. At first, I wasn't really thinking about making games. I liked playing them, and after studying, after a while, you start studying what you do, when you play, and studying like boss battle, you start to analyze the patterns and everything, and it's actually game design when you start studying. So that's how I was introduced to it. I didn't realize it at first, of course. I was just a kid, but after a while, I started my artistic career in filmmaking, and I didn't realize that I could make video games. I was playing video games, but I didn't realize at first that it was, a viable medium as an artist. And then all of a sudden, I don't know exactly what made me do it, but I just tried out of curiosity, and I liked it, so I kept doing it.
Yeah, so what was it, like the discovery of like just an easy to use engine, something like Game Maker or?
Exactly. Yeah. I saw a tutorial on Game Maker while browsing YouTube, and I was like, hey, what's that? So I started looking at it. It seemed quite easy to understand at first, so I tried it, and from there later on I moved to Unity, because you can make more stuff with it. It's not better, it's just in case I want to move to 3D at some point, I know I can now, because Unity is good for that.
Right. And you're currently working on Guide of the Darksteel, aren't you?
Yeah, Guild of Darksteel, yeah.
Guild of Darksteel, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, by the looks of it, a platforming roguelike game.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's really roguelike, but there is some elements of roguelikes in it.
Okay.
But it's more, have you played Flashback?
Yeah.
Well, it's very much inspired by Flashback.
Oh, okay.
That game, and also Another World, the first Prince of Persia,
Right.
So it's a mix of platformer and adventure.
Okay, and with that, would like story be a huge element, seeing that was more or less the driving force in those games?
Yeah, it's very much story driven.
Yeah. What was the inspiration behind, like you're saying stuff like Flashback, Prince of Persia, and stuff? Is there anything else, or is there like something like currently now is like wanting you to push in this direction, or is it just old nostalgia that's pushing you?
There's a lot of nostalgia, but there's also Vagrant Story?
Yeah.
I'm very much inspired by that game too. It has a lot of flaws. If you've played it, you might agree with me. There's a lot of flaws in the game, but it's great. It's a bit like an old school, a retro Dark Souls, if you will. There's a lot of similarities with Dark Souls, and I love Dark Souls. So those two games are a huge influence in making Guild of Darksteel. In the design, the choice of colors, I really love the work of the concept artist who worked on Vagrant Story, Akihiko Yoshida. He's currently working on the Final Fantasy online game. You know, Final
Yeah.
Fantasy 14.
14. Yeah.
Hmm.
With your like past in film, have you found that's helping you like create stuff for your game?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
and like
Yeah.
what type of like skills have you found that like translate the best over, and which ones actually don't translate over at all? Out of interest.
Uh, well, there is one big similarity between filmmaking and game dev. It's the amount of various artistic mediums involved in the creation of one piece of art, you know?
Mm.
Like in filmmaking, you have photography, you have acting, you have storytelling, and all that stuff. In video games, a lot of it is also present, except there is this big uh, game design element in it, you know, and interactivity that's not present in filmmaking. So when you tell a film, it's a linear experience for the audience. When it comes to games, it's more of interaction, and you can go back and forth in the game. So you have to think of that when you make it. And so I wasn't really prepared for that part, that interaction part, um, coming from films. I mean, but yeah, the things that I brought from filmmaking are the storytelling, uh, visual storytelling, also very important, because it's not like writing a book. You know, you have to, when you make a film, you have to tell a story with picture and sound. When you make a game, you have to tell a story with picture, sound, and interaction. So I was at least prepared for two of the three elements of storytelling. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, I've been working in film for 15 years, so it helps you, it builds you as an artist, you know, spending so much time on one medium. And then I've explored all other things, that every single thing that I try uh, builds me as an artist. So I wouldn't make my games wouldn't be the same without all the stuff that I've done before. I'm very much my shape as an artist is dependent on all that.
Yeah. With you saying that you spent so much time in film, I wouldn't mind exploring on the fact of like you're talking German films here, and just how is like, because obviously most people when you say film they're always going to think of like Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any like direct difference that you can say about like a German film away from like a Hollywood or American film?
Yeah, but first, I'm not German, I'm Belgian. It's right next to it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm Belgian. I speak French. But
Mm.
yeah, the question remains the same. Um, I don't know, because I grew up with Hollywood films, you know. So I believe with time, directors from all over the world are more and more uh, there's they're submerging in the genres and in the influences. Uh, you know, in the 80s or before the 80s, you had that gap between European films and American films, but nowadays a lot of directors grew up with Hollywood, so it's less and less different. But I don't know. I tend to prefer Hollywood films because I like the technicality of film, and very often European film are less less impressive in their photography, in the way that it's shot, and all those things. The visual is not as impressive. So yeah, I like entertainment. I like spectacle. You know.
All right. And So with all the we used to saying like with the spectacle and all that, um, like have you with the Guild of Darksteel, is the element of like spectacle and stuff? Would that be a part of it? You know you're saying like flashback and stuff. So
Hmm.
um,
I would like to, because yeah, because of all of the things we just talked about. You know, coming from filmmaking, making a cinematic in a game is very interesting. You know, I want to do that, but I'm working alone on Guild of Darksteel, and I don't think it's very wise to to spend too much time on it, because that's some time I should spend on making the game better. You know, but I would like to.
just wondering, because you are you funding this through doing freelance pixel art? Is that how you currently funding the project?
Yeah, that's how I'm doing it. I'm working for various clients in the indie game industry. Most of the time, it's developers trying to make their first game, and they want to they want to work on a demo or something, and I'm making the graphics for them. They're using uh, their uh, their pocket money to fund it. But sometimes it's bigger projects, and not only pixel art. Right now, I'm working on a game as a VFX artist. I'm making particle effects, so I'm doing a lot of different stuff, but mainly pixel art. Yeah.
Yeah. I find it interesting that you found this. Well, I've definitely heard of other people using this approach of using freelance to fund other projects. It's just I always find it interesting to hear of how like they balance their freelance jobs with their their little projects on the side. And I was just wondering if it's been tough, or if you found it quite easy due to the fact of like your knowledge and your experience with like multitasking projects in the past.
At first, I thought it would be easy, but it's not that easy, because you are quickly, how to put it? At first, the biggest difficulty is to balance your time. You know, making sure you keep some time for your own project, and as clients keep coming in, you know, you don't want to say no, and you end up having too much work. And I haven't worked on Guild of Darksteel for like a month or 2 months, because I had too much work. So you have to be patient when you work like that, because it's more important when a client comes to you. It's important to say yes, because that person might come back later for another project, and again for a third project, and you know, it's a long-term relationship that you're building. So it's not wise to say no, I want to work on my game, but you still want to work on your game, so you have to try and find time for it. It's not always easy. And as long as, you know, I decided, at first I was a bit disappointed by the fact that I had too much work to do and not enough time for Guild of Darksteel. But after a while, I decided to deal with it, you know, and to take my time. So now the game will be finished when it is finished. It's not really important. I know I will finish it one day, so it's cool. I just take my time.
Interesting. Normally when I hear people like talk about like doing the juggling act between work and a project, they normally tend to lean towards the project just a little bit more. But it is really refreshing to hear the of you mentioning the importance of, you know, keeping the freelance stuff more in the front.
Yeah. But you know, I'm keeping the freelance stuff in the front because my game isn't selling. That's an important aspect of it. If this is my first game, if it's a success and it's financially sustainable to keep making games like that, then freelancing will take the back seat, you know. But now it's not the time, you know, one thing at a time.
Of course. Something that interested me is the fact that you are like I say, you told me that you are set in Belgium. How do you? Is there much of a game development scene in Belgium, or have you
Yeah, yeah.
found that there's a okay? Can you just explore a
Yeah,
bit of
yeah.
that?
It's funny because when I started making video games, so it was like 2 years ago, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. I started looking up on Google if other people in Belgium were making games, and I saw no one. And I was surprised, you know. But like 5 months later, various different events and communities started in Belgium, and it was, I don't know, it was like the stars aligned, you know. Just when I was starting, everyone in Belgium was starting also, you know. Everybody was starting to gather together, and now we have meetups in Belgium. Like every month, we have a meetup. We have meetups in 3 cities: one in my own town, and one in the capital in Brussels, one in Antwerp. So everyone in Belgium is somewhere at some point, you know. And after a year and a half now, I know almost everybody, and it's, I believe it's very important to go to meetups as you are developing your game, especially in my situation where I make the programming and the graphics and the sound. I make everything myself, you know. So I'm alone on my computer, and it's good to show your game to people, see how they react, to talk about it, talk about, just like we're doing now, you know, talking about how I balance freelance with my game, for instance, and talking about all those issues with people. It's helping me going forward, you know. But yeah, the community is quite big here in Belgium, and we have a festival now. We have a Screen Shake festival. It started last year in February, and they are preparing the next years. Yeah, and we have meetups every month. So yeah.
Right. And just out of curiosity, just as you mentioned that this all pretty much came around like 2 years ago, and I was, when you said that, could it have possibly been because of something like the way that you got into it was the fact you found a tutorial for a very easy and very manipulated engine, and I was just wondering, have you seen that being like the case when you've looked at other Belgian creators' games? Is like you've seen like they've used something like Unity or the Game Maker engine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people I know from meetups are using Construct, for instance. There's a big community of Construct users here.
Right.
Yeah, it's great because it's a great all those softwares like Construct and Game Maker and even stuff like RPG Maker or whatever. It's a great opportunity to learn, and some people use it for their finished games, and it's great. But I really like them for the first steps in game development. You know,
Yeah.
I find that great that we have, you know, softwares that have evolved tremendously in the last years. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's been great because like a number of people that I've spoke to on the show, they've all a lot of them have actually came like all started on like something like Game Maker, and they've all roughly said like the same thing, is because of how those tools are set, and with a bit of months practice, they're like able to start actually experimenting, like getting into the code, start digging around, because they've got used to it, instead of having this huge like level like wall barrier that was there before. Because like tackling something like the Unreal Engine without any prior knowledge is a daunting task.
Exactly.
But having something like Game Maker, which gives you a bunch of preset tools and allows you to actually go in and manipulate them on a very, very deep level, when you get more comfortable with it.
They teach you the basics, because there's no proper programming and stuff like in programs like Game Maker. Well, it's some sort of programming, but the thing it does is it teaches you the mechanics of programming and how things are organized in a program, and they teach you like what an if statement is and all those stuff, you know. And you don't have to worry about too much about the how do you call it, the words themselves, you know,
Yeah.
when you're programming, the language, the specificity of a single language, but it's more of a bird eye view on what programming is, and it's interesting. A good way to learn.
Yeah. And you mentioned that they just had their first festival last year. Did you go?
Yeah, I went there, and they were organizing a Belgian indie game developer showcase thing. So it was great. That's where I met most of my Belgian friends in the game development. You know, it was like everyone in a big room with everyone with their computer and talking about all games, playing each other's games. It was great. It was more, that special event was more about the developers than the general audience, you know, and it was great. Like it was like a meetup, but very focused on our games, each other's games. It was great.
Yeah. Oh, I've been to a number of developers meetups and conferences, and it's always great to see like them talking about like their stuff, showing it off, and just like bouncing ideas off of each other, because that's where you get to see them actually in a space in which they can feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And like they get to express a lot more about like what they're working on than they could with the public.
Yeah, and there's a focus on things, you know. People are there for their games, and everybody knows why we are there, right? It's not just people gathering. We have a very strong focus on one thing: is sharing our experience as game developers. And I find that very motivating.
Mm. And would you have you considered like going to other events, like branching outside of Belgium, or is that would that be something in like the near future or later future that you'd be considering looking at going to other shows? Because I know there's plenty that go around that are starting to pop around Europe, especially over the last few years.
Yeah, and definitely. I haven't gone, but I want to go, and the sooner the better. It's just a matter of finding the time to go and the money when it's expensive in some cases. Like I wanted to go this summer. I wanted to go to Gamescom, but I couldn't because of money. But that just happened. Next year I'll be there, and all the little, little quote unquote festivals like Amaze and stuff like that. I want to be there. I like the mood in those festivals. I like the way it's very strong. It's a very strong community. You know, people who go to those events. You always see the same people, you know, and it builds some sort of community. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and so with us talking about community, have you found a lot of help on like social media side, like using Twitter? Has that been a help for you?
Yeah, I love Twitter. It's great. It's the place where it's the one stop for game devs. Apparently, you know. So, you know, some people like to hang on Facebook, but a lot of game devs are on Twitter. So it's great to be able to talk. It's the same principle as what I just said about meetups. You know, it's meeting people, like-minded people. You know, people who are working on the same kind of stuff as you are. People making their first game just like you, and you share your knowledge. You share your exposure. You help them when they have a green light. You promote them. It's a big community. It's I don't know. I like the positive mental attitude on Twitter. It's great.
That's great to hear, because I've seen that a lot more on Twitter than I've seen anywhere else. It's just like a dev will just show, like, there's obviously like there's hashtags for it, there's screenshot Saturday and all
I love that.
But it's like they'll just show a quick little snippet, and like you guys will just talk about it, and like you follow down the thread, and it's like at some point like it stops becoming like just like thumbs up and all, but like you'll start talking about like what's going on, then you start like talking about like fixing and stuff like that. It's really fascinating to see, especially like like you say, like if anyone was to have a problem, I can't think any better or more friendly place than just saying like I may have a problem, and
Yeah.
most of you guys will jump on with an answer or two within like 5 minutes.
Exactly. And it's also a place to try things, you know. You Screenshot Saturday, I try to post GIFs instead of just screenshots,
Yeah.
so I can show my game in motion. And I try to, I try to show a feature, not just my character walking or something. I try to show a feature of my game, so I can get the general feel of what the people think about it, you know. And it's an awesome way to show your stuff and see what people like and don't like.
Yeah, was that when you were showing off, or is it your inventory?
Yeah,
Menu?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got a few critiques for my inventory, and it helps me make my game better. So it's great.
Well, with that, it's been this has been a really interesting talk because like you've been quite honest, and it's been quite nice to hear of you talking things in such a sure way, I'd say. But there's something I do want to ask. You know, when you went to the conference and when you go to the meetup, because there's one thing I know about game developers, which is pretty much universal, is that how much did you drink?
Yeah, I don't drink much. I'm not a universal game developer.
Oh,
so,
okay. Oh,
you know, but yeah, there's obviously there's a lot of drinking involved usually. I'm very serious when I go to those places. You know?
I respect that answer. I respect that answer, sir. But I can't imagine a few, like, I got to imagine a few of your meetups have been taking place in pubs.
Yeah, always, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think that I think we've had a pretty much a good interview. It's been very nice talking to you, and it's been very enlightening to actually hear what you have to say about Belgium and about how you do your work. So if you've got anything to obviously plug away, if you won't mind, if you got anything.
Well, it was a pleasure for me to be here. I don't have anything to plug except if people want to follow what I do, they can just come follow me on Twitter and take part in the conversation. But I really enjoy this talk. It was fun and refreshing. It changed my day. So, and I like your YouTube channel. It's cool.
No, thank you.
It feels like you have a plan for what you're doing, and it's great. You know.
Slowly getting there.
From one video to another, I can see that you have an idea in mind of what you're trying to do, and it's great. I hope you keep on doing it.
Yeah, I've got a few more lined up, and it's going surprisingly better than I thought. It's still small, but I'm having fun doing it, and the whole reason why I started this is the same reason why I kind of got into games in the first place, was because there's nothing more I love doing than talking to the developers. I've never found.
I can see that, where I can hear that when you talk to people. It's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you so much for letting me interview you. This has been another episode of Huge Update Interviews, and I'm going to say goodbye, and then Igor's going to say goodbye. Nope, you're not going to say goodbye?
Oh, sorry, I was distracted. Yeah, goodbye, internet. See you soon. See you around.
Goodbye.